you tell me a little bit about yourself and your writing journey?
Yeah. Gosh, where do you even start? I mean, if we're gonna start talk about like where this all began, right?
Yeah.
Um, it really started like when I was in first grade. So I loved reading and I loved writing. So I would write stories in my journals and I would just read books like crazy. In second grade, I tested at a 10th grade reading level.
Wow.
They had me in like an advanced program just because I read so much.
Yeah.
And then I just always wrote. It was kind of my thing all through elementary school, junior high, high school, and even into college. I got my bachelor's degree in nursing, which has nothing to do with creative endeavors at all. And eventually I married my husband, who was in the Army at the time. So I moved, and my nursing license didn't transfer very easily sometimes. And we moved a lot for training because he was in the Special Forces pipeline. And I just couldn't always work as a nurse, and I sort of had a quarter life crisis at 25. Like I didn't know what to do if I wasn't a charge nurse. And
Yep.
so I decided to just pick back up on writing. Like it was my favorite hobby. I was still doing it. And I decided to kind of say, well, maybe I could do something with this. So I ended up on like a Wattpad like website
Yep.
where I would write stories and people would kind of give you feedback. And I started this prompt that I can't even remember the prompt, but it spawned what would be the first chapter of my like next book. And people loved it. So I just kept writing it and I kept writing it. And then I was like, I think I'm going to publish this because I got such good feedback. And I
Yeah.
started looking into self-publishing, and traditional publishing just really didn't sound like a good fit for me. I really
Yep.
I didn't know at the time I had an entrepreneurial spirit. So I decided to just self-publish and throw it out in the world and see what happened. And that's
Awesome.
what I did. And that was the beginning of where we are now 7 years later. So I
Okay.
have sort of my own little publishing empire. I only publish my books, but I have young adult fantasy books. I did a little foray into chick lit. I've kind of pivoted to contemporary, clean contemporary romance.
Yep.
And my two main genres are really the fantasy and the romance. So I have, I think, 27 titles now or something crazy like that.
I know. I was like, I went
Yeah.
on your website and I saw, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's more books since I last looked. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, these look so good. I'm gonna have to go and buy some. I'm gonna have to go on a Katie Cross buying splurge.
Yes, I love that. Those are my favorite.
Yeah, because I know when I was on your launch team for a while, those books were so good. Oh my gosh, I loved the chick lit ones, and then of course your witch series was awesome too. So that's wonderful. I'm so happy that you have so many books out now. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's so fun. I have a team of 7 that helps support me so that I can focus on my fan interaction and my books, and they kind of help. So I run the team, I write the books, and I talk with the fans, and
Yep.
they kind of run all the rest for me. It's just genuine passion and love for story is really where it all began, and I'm able to just sink into that every day. It's a dream. Like I absolutely live the dream, I think.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is just wonderful. That's the best way to live your life, right? To live your dream and what you love doing. I feel like I'm doing that, but I'm working towards doing it even more. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's like always a moving target, right? You
yeah,
never know where it's going to go based on where you've been, because I never thought I'd be writing romance
yeah,
and fantasy at the same time, but
right.
it's fulfilling for me now, and it'll be different in a year, so it's just really fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's great. What made you want to be a writer? So like if you think back to the first gem of the moment, that's like, that's what it was.
Yeah, I think for me, I just escaped into stories, right? Like I just loved books. I don't know if it just gave me like just as a kid like a path to like go into and be whoever I wanted. My parents divorced before I was born. My mom had to work a lot of jobs, and my brother and I were just kind of home alone a lot. We were totally latchkey kids, like back when it was way safer to be like a latchkey kid that were just like running around the neighborhood by themselves.
Yeah.
And I think books just kind of gave me a way to feel like I controlled part of my world and I could be whoever I wanted. And so I would just sink into books, and it just was a passion that I just fostered for sheer love. Like the first 24 years of my life, I wrote out of just undying passion for it. And then I turned it into a career. So really, I don't think there was a moment. I think there were thousands of moments that just created this natural intensity and drive for story. And then as I got older, I realized I wanted to do for others what books still do for me every day.
Mhm.
They provide a place for me to go to be courageous and live out my dreams. And There were just bad days. Like I have two kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I have 3 dogs. And my husband always has crazy careers, and so I have a lot on my plate. And there are just times where I just don't want to be here, right? Like it's just the end of the day. I don't feel very strong. I definitely don't feel brave. And I just want to be someone else for a while. And so I find a book and I just sink into it and I come out of it and I'm ready to face my challenges again. I just feel empowered and I feel better and magic seems possible and nothing is too big. And I realized that keeping the passion for myself wasn't enough. Like I wanted to give that gift to other people. And that's really what drives my company now, is the desire to create escapism for other people to find their courage. I think it's a gift that every author gives to their readers, and it's an amazing one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. I just love that because I hear you, especially even now in our crazy world, like escaping to a book world. And it's like, oh my goodness, like people went through hard things before and like, or, we're going to get through this or, completely escape to like a fantasy world where you don't have to deal with anything like that. And it's such a nice refreshing moment to kind of just escape into a book.
Oh, absolutely. And I think COVID really like brought that to light last year.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of people, it seemed like they went one of two ways. They were like, I can't read it all because I'm just so distracted and stressed, or I found my books again.
Yeah.
Right.
That happened to me.
Right. Like I think we all sort of just went back to that place where we're like, all of our normal coping mechanisms are gone. Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And we kind of sort of fell back to those instinctual paths. And a lot of people found books again last year, which is really cool. Kind of
so
set us up to cope almost,
Right. I just love it. I love that. And I love how you were saying that you just want to help give people the courage to continue, to kind of continue on in their life, but take a break and, sink into a book and get that courage and bravery again inside the covers of the book. I just love that. That's cool. I know that you have like your fantasy series, plural.
Yeah.
And also and then also your contemporary and romance series. So what are you currently working on, if you can share with us?
Yes, of course. So my sole focus right now is my manuscript called The Lost Magic. So I wrote the Network series, which was my first series. That's that book that I started and threw into the world, and it's just gone like a rock star. So the Network series has 4 books. It's about Bianca Monroe. And Bianca, those 4 books, like sort of in my mind, just wrapped up and finished. And I was like, okay, we're done. And I actually went back 100 years and started writing those books. And then I went back 500 years and started writing some of those books. So I've been staying in the same universe, but I've just been writing about all these characters. Well, I had this idea to bring Bianca back because she is everyone's favorite. Like Bianca is the heart and soul of my company because she is where everything began. Yeah. And I thought about bringing it back, but I was like, no, like Bianca's done, like she's in the past. But I had so many people messaging me about it that I was like, well, maybe. And I had a fan write in with some fan fiction, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh, maybe I do miss Bianca. Like maybe we should bring her back. So I decided to just do it. So I'm starting the Network saga, and it takes place 3 years after the Network series ended. So it's 4 more books with Bianca Monroe, and it's 3 years after her previous series ended. So that comes out September 2nd of this year. So I'm finalizing the manuscript for us to push it into production, and we're just starting like launch prep. Well, we've been doing launch prep forever, but we're starting our initial push into launch team and that kind of stuff. So,
that's exciting.
Super exciting. It was weird to dive back into a world I had already done, but I hadn't touched for a couple years. So it was like no work at all to bring Bianca back, but then there's still tons of work with it because I have to remember details like, what did the throne room look like, or what color was Scarlett's hair? There's a lot to do, but it was fun how I just fell back into Bianca's voice. So that's really fun.
That's wonderful. That's great. So do you have something then like a story Bible that you've used, or did you just kind of have to go back into the story and read through it to try and get those details, like just for gathering that information that you need since you've been away from it for a little while?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's kind of both. So I do I use a writing software called Scrivener. I'm sure you're familiar with that, but listeners may or may not be. So Scrivener is just it's like Microsoft Word on steroid for authors. Like it's just phenomenal. So it's more organizational. So I have like files in Scrivener that are World Bible-ish, but I'm not a very like good detail follow through person. So I'm really good with details in a manuscript, but when it comes to following through on those details, like in a world Bible, I'm not going to take the time to like be updating that a lot because I just want to keep writing, you know, just I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So it's not super updated, but I try really hard as I'm plotting and like writing to update it. So I kind of do both. So I'll consult the World Bible for like character descriptions, like what was their hair color, eye color again. But then if I can't find it, I'll message a team member on Telegram and I'll just say, hey, can you go into this book and just try to find this person's eye color and make sure that we're being consistent. And then they'll go into the published manuscript and do a search on like the computer, and they'll find it for me. That way I can just really like keep it focused. So in the manuscript, I'll put it in brackets. I'll just put bracket eye color, and then I do a search later for brackets, and I can fill out like, oh, this was the eye color, this was the hair color, this was the throne description, that kind of thing.
Then you're not wasting that time when you're writing it and whatnot to go and like research, trying to find, oh, what color hair, what color eyes. Yeah.
Right. It sounds funny, but like to say that it takes too long, because really it's minutes at most, but it really kind of takes you out of the writing.
Yeah.
So that you're kind of going back and forth, and it can kind of slow the creative flow down, which I hate using the word flow because I think people overemphasize that too much, but it certainly can be distracting and in and out. So I get a lot less actual writing done. So anything that I can give to someone else to do in my company, then I do. And then it helps me just really save my time for the writing.
Oh, can you tell us a little about your most recent book, Baby? I mean, maybe you've already kind of talked about that a little bit, but is there something you're really excited about? Like, you're back in her world and everything. What are you really excited about delving into and also sharing with people? Like, I know you probably can't give me spoilers, but what are you excited about?
You know, I think right now I'm just excited for my readers to get back into Bianca, right? And once I made the announcement, I've been doing emails about it, the pre-orders are just flying in every day. Because I think people just can't wait to dive back into Bianca's world, because it's the first that they usually know. My fantasy world is named Alcara, and I think like Bianca is really the first step most people take into Alcara, and so they always form like a special relationship with her, even though I have a lot of other amazing female protagonists throughout the series, or like throughout that world. See people re-engage with Bianca and then hear what they think about Bianca 3 years from now. It's daunting, right? Because I want to make sure that I'm being true to Bianca as she was, but also her progression, and like, because she's 21 now, she's like moving into adulthood in a different stage. So I'm excited like to see Bianca grow with the fans and see what they think. I think that's what I'm most excited for.
Oh, that's super exciting, because like she was in the school and stuff, and and like getting ready to go to the school, and then in the school, and you see her there, and then now she's grown up, and so that's super. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's fun to push Bianca. She's always been like an old soul and kind of in an adult world anyway, but as like a single child, and she was always like on a quest to save her own life. But she really is shoved into these new challenges, and it's been so fun for me to see her like just grapple with that transition to adulthood, you know, because she does it in the network series, but in the network saga she's there, and she really has to learn in The Last Magic to let go of what happened in the past so that she can move forward, which is really fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. I can tell you're really excited about it, so I'm super excited for you.
Well, thank you. I know it's gonna be so fun. It's gonna be blast.
That is awesome. Okay, that's just, I am ready to read the book, so get it out, girl.
All right, I'm done.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so let's see here. What gave you the original idea for Bianca's story?
Oh, this is a fun story. So I was living in Alabama, and I was raised in the Rocky Mountains in Idaho and Wyoming and Montana. So I was always just used to like a very mountainous world. I was working out of Salt Lake City when I married my husband at a pediatric hospital there. So I just had always known mountains. So when we were in the South, it's a completely, like the Southern US, it's just a totally different world to the rest of the United States. It's its own little like hotspot of culture. So there's just not like the same outdoor recreation opportunities. And we had this place called Pine Mountain. It's not far from where we were stationed at Fort Benning. It was like an hour. So like almost every weekend we would go to Pine Mountain and we'd go trail running, and it would get us kind of like we would feel like we were in the mountains again. So it kind of get us like a mountain fix while we trail around together. And the forest there is just really cool. But we were there in the fall and it was really foggy one day and the leaves had fallen and it was just kind of quiet. And I just remember like thinking as I ran, oh, it just feels like this is where like a witch lives here. It just feels like the witch that lives here, you know? And so every time we'd go trail running at Pine Mountain, I would think of this witch that I could just picture living there. And it was just funny to look back because at the time I just had a feeling like it was just going to be something in my life. Like I had no idea what that meant, but every time I thought about that witch, I was just like, there's something big there. Like that's the only feeling that's the only way to articulate it. So we moved to oh my gosh, I can't remember right now, but we moved up to North Carolina, Fort Bragg. And that's when I couldn't work. I wasn't working as a nurse in Fort Benning and we moved to Fort Bragg. But that's when I found this contest and I needed an idea for this writing contest. And I was like, I'm going to write about that witch in the woods. And so I literally just sat down and I just started writing this story about the witch in the woods. And the witch in the woods actually ended up being Isadora, who Bianca first approaches. Nice. And now Isadora has her own series of books. She's in Bianca's series of books. And it literally, like, the idea of that witch in those woods started this whole like 7 years strong like publishing empire. So it ended up being the biggest thought I'd ever had.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So I know that story I heard that like a while back, but I just wanted my followers to hear that story because it's so powerful and so magical. I just love that, you know, like you get the story idea when you're running in the forest and it's like, something's here, you know, like something's
right
here.
That's the best way to put it. It's like there's something here. And it's so fun too because if you know Bianca at all, Bianca has so much of me in her. I was a pretty like not immature writer, but I was newer to writing at the time, and I just put a lot of myself in her. And that's what Bianca always does, is she always runs in the forest, right? She's like, she runs barefoot though. I'm not that brave, but she runs in the forest all the time. So it makes it even like more fun when you know Bianca and the story of how she started.
I love that. Yeah, that's just, oh, it's so perfect. I love that story. That's wonderful. And so when it comes to like your Dragon Master series and your historical collection, like is there any like defining little story nugget that you got to get those ideas too, or kind of maybe not as strong as with Bianca and Isadora?
There wasn't anything nearly so like whoa about it. These other ones just kind of came to me slowly, but they are all seeded. So in the network series, which is my flagship series, you know, Isadora and Sana are old lady. They're 120 years old in those books. And then I rewind 100 years and give Isadora and Sana their story. And through these two series, I mention a lot of other witches throughout history. Like they'll just be referenced briefly. Like Bianca has the flying rugs called the Volare, and Tuffer is the weaver of magic. So I have a whole book about weavers of magic. And then like Vittoria is the high priestess that started as a lavanda maid, which is like the lowest caste in society, and then she works her way to high priestess. So I ended up writing the first book in the historical collection about her. So I've kind of gently seeded all these other story ideas throughout these two series, and then I'm writing those story ideas in the historical collection as standalone novels. So it's really fun for anyone that's read the books. They already kind of have an idea.
Yeah, and it's just such a magical world. So I just love how you created that, you know, like, and pulled that in. And it's the magic from the forest, I think, you know, that sense of wonder and magic that you felt. You have that throughout the stories, even though it might not, like you said, that seed. I just love that. It's just perfect.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that, because that's exactly what I want for my readers. So that's fun.
Good. That's wonderful. Yeah. Well, you've done a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, who are your favorite authors? If you could name off a few, who are your favorite authors?
So, right. I mean, they oscillate probably every day, but I would say in general, right now, Naomi Novik and her Temeraire series, amazing. She gets me super excited about dragons.
Okay.
Libba Bray and the Great and Terrible series has been one of my favorites for a long time. I have not read or interacted with the Harry Potter fandom or any of Harry Potter ever since I started writing my first book, Miss Mabel's School for Girls, because any witch that has magic and is in school is going to get the Harry Potter references. I embrace that now, but at first I really resisted it. Like, I'm not Harry Potter, I'm different.
Yeah.
But I loved the Harry Potter world, and I loved J.K. Rowling's writing style, but I stay away from her because I just feel like I love her so much. I'd be really heavily influenced by her work, and I already get that from people, so I just try to stay away from it. But if she definitely is an author I massively respect.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the name of the series. I can't even remember the name. There's this book I'm listening to on audio, and because I'm listening to it on audio, I can't remember like the title and I'll have to think of it later. But yeah, there's a lot of young adult fantasy that I'm mostly just thinking into right now, just as I drive around town or whatever, to kind of get my words. Those are the ones that comes to my head right now. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, if you think of the name, I can just send it to me later, and then I can add it.
Yes.
That works perfectly. I know who that is, though. When you're listening to it, it's like, wait a minute, what was the name of it?
Well, because you're not like holding it or seeing it. I have to look up the library now. It's gonna drive me crazy. Yeah, so Naomi Novik, and then Laura Sebastian.
Okay.
So the second book is Ember Queen, and the third book is Lady Smoke. I can't remember the first book.
Oh, cool titles.
Laura Sebastian I like have a love affair with her words. Like, so I find that writing, I always say it takes my words away, like just writing so much, and I have to get my words back through the day. It's how I like keep my energy high. And Laura Sebastian gives me my words back, which is the highest compliment I can give to any author, is that I get my words back. So Laura Sebastian is a great one.
That's wonderful. So you just have to refill that
Yes.
picture, right?
Exactly.
So that you can return and add words to your own work.
Exactly. Yeah, I just need to get my words back. And with Laura and Naomi and the Libba Bray's Great and Terrible series, I always get my words back. So.
That's great. I'm gonna have to look into them because I've never read any of their work, so I'm gonna check it out. That's wonderful. So let's see here. So what's your typical writing day look like? You write every day or not every day?
So I have a 3 and a 6-year-old, so it's hodgepodge at best, right? But for the most part, I try to have childcare for at least 3 hours in the morning, so I can do stuff like this. I have a list of business tasks that I have to do every day, and I kind of have a routine. I sit down to work and I go through my tasks, and then as soon as those are done, I hit the writing. Depending on if I have an impending deadline or other things, I'll write first and do business tasks later. It just depends what's going on. And then once I'm done, and my childcare is up, whether I have a babysitter or like my mom watches them twice a week, so she gets grandma time for a couple hours, then I shut my computer and I'm with my kids. So usually, like today, it'll be in the morning until about 10:30, and then my mom has to go to work. So then I shut the computer and I'm with my kids until I put them to bed, and then I put them to bed and I work for another couple hours. Sometimes that happens, sometimes that doesn't. So I probably work anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day, about 4 to 5 to 6 days a week. Okay. Sometimes I have to work on the weekends. So it's about like a little over part-time gig right now. With my kids being so little, I try to dedicate most of my day to them. And really, it just comes down, I live in 2 worlds. I have the business mind and I have the writing mind, and I try to be in the writing mind as much as possible, but I can't write unless I take care of the business. So it's a pretty much a give and take. There's, marketing things or like interviews and that kind of stuff that I do. And then I talk to my team, I go through emails, I respond to fans, comments, that kind of stuff. And then I just focus on the writing.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. That's great. And then, so since you've got your 2 kids, 3 and 6, you said, right?
Yeah.
So what's your best advice for being a mom and a writer who is like a business writer? So like you've got this as a business, you're working on it. Like, how do you balance the 2? Like for people who are moms and writers out there, and people who will someday have kids as writers. So
I have 2 trains of thoughts here. One is give yourself lots of grace. because your kids are only little ones. And I feel like I'm still in the thick of it because I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we're potty training and preschool and first grade and all that stuff.
Yep.
We're still kind of in the thick of it here, but there are just days where, like last night, I had a bunch of writing I needed to do, but just mentally after helping my kids through some stuff, I just wasn't there. So I went and visited my brother for like an hour, and that was really fun. I just gave myself that grace to not be perfect with my writing. Like, it gets done. I always rise to the occasion. Deadlines are squeaky for a reason. So giving myself grace has been like a really just good advice I got from someone else. And the other one is just maximize efficiency. So I am like, I don't know if you do Enneagram. I'm Enneagram 3. Efficiency is my jam. Like, that is my favorite cake to eat, right? So I will have it set, like my day set up for success from the beginning. So, you know, I have childcare and I'm super firm on those boundaries. So at 7:30, I'm like, okay, I'm going down to work, and I shut my door and I'm here till 10:30, and my mom has my kids. So I just make sure that I remove myself completely, so my kids like just know that they go to grandma. But I spend a half hour before we start their bedtime getting the house ready, so that once they go to bed, I don't have distractions. Like I clean up dinner, the laundry's done. I just try to get it all ready so that once they're in bed, my butt's in the chair and I'm working. Because you can lose like an hour of time just trying to get your house cleaned up or whatever. Yeah. So I think just being really efficient and prepared for that work time is great. And the third would be boundaries, right? Like setting boundaries with yourself. So it's like, no, I'm in work mode right now. I'm giving myself permission to work. And then I'll be in mom mode for like 6 hours, right? So it's like, so I know like that's coming. And then I just will set those boundaries with my kids. Like, I love you very much, and I'm excited to play with you when I'm done, but right now mom has to work. Yeah. And so what you want to do right now, I want to do as soon as like the clock hits 10 o'clock or whatever. Like I tell him, my son knows time, so I can say, okay, when it's 10:30, mom will be upstairs and it's time for us, right? Okay. So those boundaries are really life-saving too, because it's, you know, as a mom, you feel mom guilt, like, oh, I'm working instead of being with my kids. But having those boundaries helps me just know, like, no, it's okay that I'm working. Like, it's okay for me to work and be a mom. Having those boundaries creates the efficiency that allows the work to get done.
That's wonderful. That's really good advice. And like, I think that sometimes it's so easy for us to, you know, not set good boundaries, even outside of kids, so and business and stuff. So that's a really good little pointer, especially for people who have kids and stuff. Like, I think that's really good.
Oh, good.
Really helpful. So yeah, that's wonderful. So I guess, let's see here, what is the most difficult thing about being a writer for you? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the ideas. So for my team members, I have standard operating procedures, right? Like, we call them SOPs. I think a lot of companies have these. And I have so many ideas that I have sometimes overwhelmed team members, and they're like, you need to stop. Like, they didn't know what to do with all my ideas. Like, I was just spitting ideas at them. And so I finally created this SOP that was how to deal with Katie's ideas. And so I actually train my team members in how to deal with my ideas. It's so cool. So we have this rubric where I say, okay, sometimes I might spit a lot of ideas at you, especially my social media manager and my launch director. Like, I'm like, what if we do this? 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 And I was like, I tell them, like, I will probably spit a lot of ideas at you. We use Telegram. I run my company through Telegram. So like, I'll probably Telegram you a lot of ideas. This is how to cope with them. So I have a rating system, right? Of like, 5 is the best idea ever. Let's implement it into the business now. 1 is, this is not a good idea. Let it go. So that they can not be worried about giving really candid feedback, because I have so many ideas. I don't care if they're shot down. They're just like a dynamo inside me. I just have to get all my ideas out. Right. So the same thing is true of story. I use Trello to organize like my tasks, and it's just like my organizational whatever. So I have an entire Trello board just dedicated to story ideas. So I will text myself or Telegram myself or email myself these ideas whenever they come up. And what I've started doing is I will voice telegram one of my VAs, because I have 3. I'll voice telegram one of my VAs ideas as I drive, because they always come to me as I drive. And I sent her so many when I was driving to Montana the other day. There was 21 pages that she had like transcribed.
21 pages of ideas. That's wonderful. But
a lot of it was world building for the Network Saga. Like, I was like, oh, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna end or this. Oh, and this plot point, and do this, and this character development. Blah blah blah. It was just ideas. ended up being 21 pages, but
Wow.
she wrote them out so I could organize them in my writing software. So I
Yeah.
think, I mean, it's definitely the amount of ideas that I have and knowing like what ones to use and what ones to kind of cull.
Sure, sure. It's easy to get too many ideas, and then it's like, man, I need to finish this one first, or do this project first, or
Well, and then to get pulled off our goals because of a cool idea.
yeah,
So that's why I always tell my team, like, I have this great marketing idea, but then like Samantha can say, that is a good idea, but let's finish this other one we've already started and we'll
yeah,
table that, because I just want to do all the things and then I get caught up in it and I'm like, oh no. So I have to like slow the ideas down and then implement them wisely.
yeah.
But I'm a
I'm
quick
sure.
start, so that's hard.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure that that really helps to have like having that team that can say, okay, that's a great idea, but we'll come back to it. Let's do this one and finish that first.
Yes.
Like I feel like when you're just yourself wearing too many hats, like before getting a team, you're just like, oh, cool idea, shiny me, you're
Exactly.
just like, I'm gonna go off over here and do that, and then you realize that you've wandered wandered into the woods and gotten lost and have to wander and find the breadcrumbs to find your way back. So
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, been there, done there, got that shirt for sure. All the time. That's why I have like team members have a standard operating procedure to stop me from doing that.
Wonderful. And so are your team members, are they in the same state as you, or did you know them before? Did you just find them online, or how was it that you found them?
Yeah, so we kind of like pulled them together. One of my customer service rep, she was in a business mastermind with me and needed some VA work, and I pulled her in. And then I created the position called a title manager because I have so many titles now. She manages all my titles across all retailers. She
Oh, wow.
produces my ebooks and my paperbacks, coordinates with the graphic designer, like. So I make all the decisions, and then she just like puts them into action. So I created the title manager position. I hired her, like I did like a interview that, or like a job application, and she filled it out, and
Oh, cool.
I found she knew my customer service rep, but I had never met her before. And then a lot of my other team members have just been fans that have stuck with me over the years. So actually my social media manager and my launch director, Samantha, she was kind of like my first really big fan. And
Oh,
I've just
cool.
her through the years. She was like 14 when we first met, and she read Miss
Yep.
Mabel's. And I've just kept track of her. And then she's in college getting her master's. And
Yep.
so a couple of years ago, I pulled her in as a VA because she knew my book so well. So
Cool.
it's just kind of been, through the years as I've pulled people in.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's great. It's great that they help you save time so that you can, focus on your writing and your kids, and that's wonderful. That's what life is about, right?
I think so. Yeah, like really like finding what you're good at and then focusing on that to kind of impact the world.
Exactly. Yes, so true. I love that. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Let's see, how about the most precious thing about being a writer to you? What is something you absolutely love about it?
I think the magic of making anything happen. Like at the end of a bad day, when I'm just tired of cleaning my house, I inevitably write a scene where there are like all these spells that are doing all the work, or, like you can just live in this other place that we don't have right now. I just love that like anything is possible through magic and through story, and we can be exactly who we want to be at any given moment. I think the most precious, like powerful thing of my writing is what I touched on before, is seeing that impact go into the world. So we get emails, I mean, every day we get so many emails from people that are just saying, I just lost my husband, your books like took me away from that. Like I have, like, I was able to escape for a while, thank you. Or I was just diagnosed with cancer. Like people are in pain right now, whether it's emotional, spiritual, physical. Like that's the most consistent thing that I've ever seen across the 7 years, is that people reach out to me because they're in pain and they go to books to escape the pain. So to me, the most precious thing about what I do is providing a place for people to go to find that power again, like to cope with the pain, to forget that pain for a little bit. And I never take for granted that that's what I'm able to do every day. And it drives me like to be able to do that. It's really cool.
Oh, that's just wonderful. And I love your heart too, Katie. You've just got this heart for your readers, and that is just precious. want to tell you that's wonderful, and
Oh,
keep it
thank
up.
you.
It's great.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I just love that.
Thank you.
So when it comes to being an indie author, because that's what you are, what helped you decide to be an indie author instead of a traditional published author? It takes a bit longer with traditional, but what made you decide to do indie publishing?
For me, it just came down to like my entrepreneurish heart, right? Like I didn't know it at the time, but I was totally an entrepreneur at heart, and I was drawn that way because I, loved the challenge of the indie movement at the time. I mean, this is 7 years ago. I came in at the end of the big tail, like the big, huge launch. I came in at the end where people realizing, oh, this could actually be hard, and like, oh, we're gonna have to like work at this. And this was before Facebook ads like really actually had traction you could sink your teeth into, and Amazon ads was even a thing. BookBub wasn't really, it was barely around. So it was like in the early like Wild West days when I was coming in, and I still just really liked the control. Like I liked that my deadlines were mine, that my covers were, I mean, someone else does my covers, but I could speak into the design. I liked that I could decide when, where, and how something happened. And that's a double-edged sword, because it's not just that you can, it's that you have to decide. So you have to decide what the cover design is. You have to make big decisions. And for some people, that's paralyzing. That doesn't draw to them. They don't feel good about that. They don't want that weight. Where for me, I wanted that. I sought that. I like that. Like, I'm not afraid to fail and make decisions and move on. But for some people, that's not a good fit. That's not what they want. And they would rather take the time to go the different route. And so when people ask me what would be best for them, I usually say, what do you want to control, right? And what do you want to be sinking your time and energy into? And I think that's the best qualifier for me. I liked the business aspect, and I liked the control that came with the business aspect.
Okay, perfect. That's really good information. And then, so what advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about indie publishing or traditional publishing? Like, I mean, I guess they can, what do they want to control, but like what other things would help them become successful with that?
Yeah, I think that I get this question a lot, and I think my favorite response to it that I feel like is the most helpful to your audience is to decide what you really want, right? So, and this can take some time, like to actually sit down and figure out, well, what do I actually want from this career? So is this like self-publishing writing? Is this just a passionate side gig? Like that you just kind of want to try out and it's fun, but you really love your day job and want to stay there too? Because that would change my route, right? Like that would maybe change the way I approached it. Or is this something like, no, I'm really tired of my day job. I want this to be a thing. Like I want my own company. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to like put my books out there. I want a team. Like, what do you want from this? And then make your decisions based on that. Because if you are really wanting to like make a publishing empire, to pivot with your books, to do whatever you want, and you're okay with business decisions and teams and that kind of stuff, indie publishing is probably a great route. But if it's like that's not really what you're wanting more collaboration with people, you're wanting less hands-on business stuff, more writing focus, you're okay with taking some time because your end state isn't this like bustling publishing empire, then a traditional path is better for you. In the end, it just comes down to what do you want, and that like really wants, and that can kind of help decide your path.
That's wonderful. And then I know there's talk of like in hybrid authors too. And how is that something that you've ever thought about?
Oh yeah.
If that option comes up.
I've thought about it, but I think at this point, the most hybrid I'd be willing to go is like a paperback deal, right? Okay. Where I keep ebook and audio rights.
Sure.
I might like negotiate with audio rights, but I've done enough big negotiations with people over my intellectual property and lawyers and all that kind of stuff at this point now that I see that other side fairly clearly, and they never have my best interest in heart, which is fair, right? They have their own things to worry about. Yeah. I'm going to worry about me. I'm not going to worry about them. So they need to worry about them. Right.
Yeah.
And so I just am not super interested in like giving up all of the rights that would require hybrid publishing.
Yeah.
But I'm not closed off to it because you never know what the future will bring. So I've thought about it. I've never actually implemented that plan because I just really love the business model I've created.
Yeah.
So.
That makes sense. That's wonderful. Just thought I'd ask that because I've wondered about that.
Yeah, no,
what advice would you give to a new writer? Kind of hop back to the beginning, right?
Yeah. I would say read like you're an author.
Mm-hmm.
So read like you're an author and ask, why did the author make this decision? Why did they use this plot twist? Why this description here? Why did they emphasize this word and not this word? Most of the time, I don't think authors think that deeply about their own work, to be frank, at least not consciously. But if you can get into an analytical mind when you're reading, it opens up a whole new world of discovery and learning for you, because sometimes we just read as readers and that has a place too. But if you're new and you're trying to figure out your voice and your writing career, I would read as an author, and then like take your observations and put them into your own books.
Yes. That's great advice. I love that. And so when it comes to like, do you have any resources that you like, also like certain books for writers as well, that you would recommend to new writers as well?
Oh yes. So my go-to is KM Weiland. Have you heard of her?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I just send everybody to her because she does like such amazing work. Her podcast is awesome. Her books are amazing. I've bought a bunch of her books. They're very much like 3-act structure, character arcs, like that kind of stuff. But she really generates amazing content you're just not going to find anywhere else. And I for me, she's spot on in a lot of like the things she explores and talks about. So she's helping writers become authors.com.
Okay.
I send everybody to KM Weiland. She's got everything.
She is wonderful. Oh my God. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, so where can people find you and your books? And
yeah, so you can go to katiecrossbooks.com to get my fantasy stuff, and then katiecrossromance.com to get all of my romance. I'm on all the ebook retailers. They're available in paperback and audio. And if you go to welcome.kcrosswriting.com/welcome, then you can get my first book, Miss Mabel School for Girls, for free.
Oh, yay. Perfect.
Series at a really cool discount. So
awesome.
That's probably the best stuff to start.
Perfect. I'll be sure to put that in the information too in the video, so that people can hop over there and get that. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, it was just so lovely to chat with you today, Katie, and thank you for carving out a little bit of time to do this interview.
You bet. Thanks for having me. This was so fun.
Oh, good.
To see face to face.
All right. I feel like we've talked a lot through like email and like message and stuff, but hadn't ever like chatted face to face. So this has been lovely.
Oh, thank you so much, Devin. I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, totally. Perfect. Well, I look forward to chatting with you again in the future, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Sounds good. Thanks. Have a good day.
Bye.